the early months of 2002, Oregon City, a quiet suburban community just south of Portland, was known for its calm streets, modest apartment complexes, and families who believed they lived far from danger. Children played outside until sunset, neighbors exchanged greetings without hesitation, and crime felt like something that happened elsewhere. That sense of safety would be violently shattered when 12-year-old Ashley Pond vanished on January 9, 2002. Ashley had left her apartment that afternoon, telling her mother she was going to meet a friend nearby. It was a routine moment, one that raised no alarm at the time. But when evening came and Ashley did not return, concern quickly turned to panic. Calls went unanswered. Friends had not seen her. As night fell, her mother contacted police, unknowingly setting into motion a search that would haunt the city for years. What initially appeared to be a possible runaway case soon revealed itself as something far more sinister, though no one yet understood the depth of the nightmare unfolding. Ashley Pond was a bright, outspoken girl with a big personality and a love for animals, music, and friendship. Those who knew her described her as trusting and social, someone who enjoyed talking to adults and children alike. Her disappearance struck the community hard because she was deeply woven into the fabric of everyday life. Investigators began by retracing her last known movements, canvassing the apartment complex, and interviewing neighbors. Witnesses reported seeing Ashley outside that afternoon, appearing calm and familiar with whoever she was speaking to. There were no signs of a struggle, no screams, and no physical evidence pointing clearly to abduction. This absence of clues complicated the investigation almost immediately. Police considered the possibility that Ashley had run away, a theory her family strongly rejected. As days passed, flyers bearing Ashley's face appeared across Oregon City. Volunteers searched wooded areas, drainage ditches, and abandoned buildings. Candlelight vigils were held, each one fueled by hope that Ashley would still come home. Despite the urgency of the search, weeks passed without any solid leads. Tips flooded in, but most led nowhere. Some claimed to have seen Ashley in nearby towns. Others suggested she had been taken by someone she met online, though no evidence supported that theory. Investigators found themselves chasing fragments instead of facts. Meanwhile, Ashley's mother became the public face of the search, giving interviews, pleading directly into television cameras for her daughter's return. The emotional toll was immense, not only on the family but on the entire community. Parents began walking their children to school. Playgrounds emptied earlier each evening. Fear quietly replaced normal routines. Yet, even as concern grew, many believed Ashley would be found alive. No ransom demand had been made. No body had been discovered. The absence of definitive proof allowed hope to survive, even as time continued to slip away. What no one realized was that the answers investigators sought were disturbingly close, hidden behind a familiar face within the same apartment complex. Just 2 months later, before Ashley's disappearance could be resolved, Oregon City was struck by a second devastating blow. On March 8, 2002, 13-year-old Miranda Gaddis vanished from the very same neighborhood. The similarities were impossible to ignore. Like Ashley, Miranda was last seen near her apartment complex. Like Ashley, she disappeared without leaving behind any physical evidence or witnesses willing to come forward with crucial information. The community's fear escalated into outright terror. Parents immediately recognized that this was no coincidence. 2 girls, similar ages, same location, same unexplained disappearance. Police now faced the terrifying possibility of a serial predator operating in plain sight. Miranda was known as quiet, artistic, and deeply attached to her family. When she failed to return home, her mother contacted police almost immediately, sensing that something was terribly wrong. Search efforts resumed with renewed urgency, but now they carried a darker understanding. Someone was targeting children. With 2 missing girls and no clear suspect, pressure mounted on law enforcement to act quickly and decisively. Detectives expanded their investigation, reviewing registered offenders, interviewing adult males in the area, and examining anyone who had contact with both girls. Schools implemented safety warnings, urging children to stay in groups and report suspicious behavior. Media coverage intensified, spreading the story beyond Oregon City and drawing statewide attention. Despite the heightened awareness, fear lingered in every interaction. Parents no longer trusted familiar faces. Neighbors watched one another with quiet suspicion. Investigators noted that both girls had been seen interacting with someone they appeared to know, suggesting the perpetrator was not a stranger. This realization narrowed the scope but deepened the horror. If the girls had willingly gone with someone, that person was likely embedded in their everyday environment. As the investigation unfolded, one name surfaced repeatedly, not as a suspect at first, but as a presence too consistent to ignore. Ward Weaver III lived in the same apartment complex as Ashley Pond and Miranda Gaddis. He was a tall, imposing man, known to some neighbors as quiet and socially awkward, but not outwardly threatening. Weaver was often seen around children and had interacted with both girls at different times. Alarmingly, he even participated in search efforts following Ashley's disappearance, offering help and information to police and family members. At the time, this behavior did not raise immediate suspicion. In many cases, community members assist in searches out of genuine concern. However, some parents had previously expressed discomfort around Weaver, describing inappropriate comments and unsettling behavior. These concerns were documented but not prioritized amid the overwhelming volume of tips investigators were processing. Weaver had a criminal history involving domestic violence, but nothing that immediately linked him to child abduction. Still, as detectives reviewed timelines and witness accounts, Weaver's proximity to both girls became increasingly difficult to dismiss. Ward Weaver III lived in the same apartment complex as Ashley Pond and Miranda Gaddis. He was a tall, imposing man, known to some neighbors as quiet and socially awkward, but not outwardly threatening. Weaver was often seen around children and had interacted with both girls at different times. Alarmingly, he even participated in search efforts following Ashley's disappearance, offering help and information to police and family members. At the time, this behavior did not raise immediate suspicion. In many cases, community members assist in searches out of genuine concern. However, some parents had previously expressed discomfort around Weaver, describing inappropriate comments and unsettling behavior. These concerns were documented but not prioritized amid the overwhelming volume of tips investigators were processing. Weaver had a criminal history involving domestic violence, but nothing that immediately linked him to child abduction. Still, as detectives reviewed timelines and witness accounts, Weaver's proximity to both girls became increasingly difficult to dismiss. In July 2002, investigators obtained a search warrant for Ward Weaver's apartment based on accumulating evidence and witness statements. What they discovered inside immediately changed the course of the case. Bloodstains were found in Weaver's residence, later confirmed through forensic testing to belong to Ashley Pond. This discovery eliminated any remaining doubt. Weaver was arrested, and news of the arrest spread rapidly through Oregon City. Shock rippled through the community as residents struggled to reconcile the image of a neighbor with the reality of a murderer. Under interrogation, Weaver initially denied involvement, offering vague explanations and attempting to downplay the evidence. But confronted with forensic proof, his story began to unravel. Eventually, Weaver confessed to abducting and murdering Ashley Pond. His admission revealed a level of calculated cruelty that stunned investigators. Yet even as this truth emerged, another devastating question remained unanswered. What had happened to Miranda Gaddis? For several days, Ward Weaver denied any involvement in Miranda Gaddis's disappearance. Investigators pressed him relentlessly, pointing out inconsistencies in his statements and presenting evidence that placed Miranda near his apartment on the day she vanished. Slowly, the weight of the evidence closed in. Weaver eventually confessed to murdering Miranda as well. He described holding both girls captive before killing them and burying their bodies beneath concrete slabs he poured himself, an attempt to permanently hide his crimes. Search crews were dispatched immediately to the locations Weaver identified. Excavations confirmed his confessions. The remains of Ashley Pond and Miranda Gaddis were recovered, bringing an end to months of uncertainty but delivering unbearable grief to their families. Oregon City mourned together, united not by hope anymore, but by collective loss. The nightmare that began with 2 disappearances had now revealed its full, horrifying scope. For several days, Ward Weaver denied any involvement in Miranda Gaddis's disappearance. Investigators pressed him relentlessly, pointing out inconsistencies in his statements and presenting evidence that placed Miranda near his apartment on the day she vanished. Slowly, the weight of the evidence closed in. Weaver eventually confessed to murdering Miranda as well. He described holding both girls captive before killing them and burying their bodies beneath concrete slabs he poured himself, an attempt to permanently hide his crimes. Search crews were dispatched immediately to the locations Weaver identified. Excavations confirmed his confessions. The remains of Ashley Pond and Miranda Gaddis were recovered, bringing an end to months of uncertainty but delivering unbearable grief to their families. Oregon City mourned together, united not by hope anymore, but by collective loss. The nightmare that began with 2 disappearances had now revealed its full, horrifying scope. As the case moved into the judicial phase, Oregon City struggled to process the enormity of what had been uncovered. Court documents revealed chilling details about how Ward Weaver had manipulated trust, using familiarity to lure Ashley Pond and Miranda Gaddis into his control. Prosecutors began assembling a case that focused not only on the physical evidence but also on the pattern of behavior that had gone unnoticed for too long. Community members attended hearings in silence, some standing along walls when seats filled, determined to witness justice firsthand. For the families, every appearance was agonizing. Hearing their daughters' names spoken alongside forensic terminology reopened wounds that had barely begun to scar. Meanwhile, investigators reviewed the timeline again, identifying moments where intervention might have been possible. Those reflections were painful but necessary. The case was no longer just about punishment. It was about accountability and learning. As the trial approached, media coverage intensified, bringing national attention to a story that exposed how predators can operate undetected within ordinary neighborhoods. During pretrial proceedings, Weaver's past was scrutinized in detail. His history of domestic violence, volatile relationships, and disturbing behavior patterns painted a portrait of a man capable of extreme control and cruelty. Witnesses testified about unsettling encounters, comments that once seemed merely inappropriate but now carried ominous weight. Prosecutors argued that these warning signs, taken together, showed escalation rather than isolated incidents. The courtroom atmosphere was heavy, often punctuated by long silences as evidence was presented. Defense arguments attempted to minimize intent and challenge procedural aspects of the investigation, but the physical evidence was overwhelming. DNA results, witness timelines, and Weaver's own confessions formed an unbreakable chain. Outside the courthouse, memorial ribbons and photographs of Ashley and Miranda served as quiet reminders of why the proceedings mattered. The trial was not only about securing a conviction. It was about affirming that the lives taken were seen, valued, and remembered. When the trial formally began, the prosecution laid out a clear and methodical narrative. They described how Weaver exploited proximity and familiarity, presenting himself as harmless while harboring violent intentions. Jurors listened as detectives explained the forensic discoveries and the significance of the concrete slabs that concealed the girls' remains. These details were presented carefully, with respect for the victims, yet their impact was devastating. Family members often left the courtroom during particularly difficult testimony, supported by counselors and advocates. The defense declined to dispute the core facts, focusing instead on procedural arguments and mental state considerations. Despite these efforts, the weight of evidence left little room for doubt. Each day of testimony reinforced the same conclusion. These crimes were deliberate, calculated, and preventable. As the trial progressed, the community watched closely, hoping for a sentence that would reflect the gravity of what had been done. In 2004, the verdict was delivered. Ward Weaver III was convicted on multiple counts of aggravated murder. The sentence, life in prison without the possibility of parole, ensured he would never be free again. For many, the decision brought a sense of legal closure, but it did not ease the emotional devastation. Ashley Pond's and Miranda Gaddis's families spoke publicly, expressing gratitude for the verdict while acknowledging that no sentence could restore what was lost. Their statements were measured, dignified, and heartbreakingly honest. They spoke of birthdays that would never be celebrated, futures that would never unfold, and a grief that had become part of daily life. The courtroom listened in silence, understanding that justice, while necessary, was incomplete. The sentence marked the end of the legal process, but for those affected, it was only the beginning of a lifelong journey through loss. In the months following the sentencing, Oregon City began a slow process of reflection and change. Schools reviewed safety protocols, community meetings focused on awareness, and parents were encouraged to talk openly with their children about boundaries and trust. Law enforcement agencies examined how early warning signs had been handled and where investigative responses could improve. The case became a reference point in training discussions, emphasizing the importance of pattern recognition and swift action when multiple disappearances occur within a confined area. Advocacy groups used Ashley's and Miranda's story to push for stronger child protection measures and better resources for missing persons cases. While these efforts could not undo the tragedy, they represented an attempt to honor the girls by preventing similar crimes. The community's grief gradually transformed into determination, a resolve to ensure that their loss would not be meaningless. Memorials for Ashley Pond and Miranda Gaddis became places of quiet remembrance. Flowers, handwritten notes, and photographs marked spaces where people paused to reflect. Each memorial served as a reminder that these were not abstract victims in a case file, but real girls with personalities, dreams, and loved ones. Friends remembered Ashley's laughter and confidence, Miranda's creativity and gentle nature. Over time, their names were spoken at events dedicated to child safety and awareness, ensuring they would not be forgotten. Families found small measures of comfort in these tributes, though grief remained ever present. Healing was not linear. Some days brought strength, others reopened wounds. Yet through shared remembrance, the community maintained a connection to the girls' lives rather than solely to the manner of their deaths. That distinction became crucial in preserving their dignity. The case also prompted broader conversations about how predators exploit trust. Experts emphasized that danger often comes from familiar sources rather than strangers, challenging long-held assumptions about safety. This shift in understanding influenced how parents, educators, and communities approached prevention. Emphasis was placed on listening to children, taking discomfort seriously, and encouraging open communication without fear. Ashley's and Miranda's story illustrated how easily warning signs can be dismissed when they conflict with a sense of normalcy. By confronting that reality, communities hoped to become more vigilant without becoming fearful. The balance was delicate but necessary. The legacy of the case extended beyond Oregon City, reaching audiences across the country who recognized similar vulnerabilities in their own neighborhoods. Years later, the names Ashley Pond and Miranda Gaddis remain etched into Oregon's history as symbols of both loss and accountability. Their case continues to be referenced in discussions about investigative urgency and community responsibility. For law enforcement, it stands as a reminder that proximity and familiarity can be critical factors in early suspect identification. For parents, it reinforces the importance of intuition and advocacy. For the broader public, it serves as a sobering example of how quickly safety can be shattered. Time has softened some edges of grief, but the impact endures. Anniversaries are still marked, stories retold, lessons reiterated. In remembering Ashley and Miranda, the community affirms that their lives mattered and that vigilance is a shared responsibility. The story of these two girls is not only about a crime, but about a failure to recognize patterns soon enough. Two disappearances, so close in time and place, demanded immediate connection, yet the truth emerged only after irreparable harm. This realization remains painful, but it also fuels continued advocacy for better systems and faster responses. Families of missing children often cite this case when urging authorities to act decisively. The hope is that future investigations will benefit from the lessons learned here. While no outcome can erase the past, improved awareness can shape a safer future. Ashley and Miranda's legacy lies in that possibility, the chance that their story might prevent another family from enduring the same loss. Ultimately, the shocking case of Ashley Pond and Miranda Gaddis stands as a haunting reminder that evil can hide behind ordinary appearances. It underscores the importance of community vigilance, responsive investigation, and unwavering attention to warning signs. Though justice was served in the courtroom, the true measure of accountability lies in remembrance and change. Ashley and Miranda are remembered not for how they died, but for who they were, two young girls whose lives should have been long and full. Their story continues to be told so that their voices, though silenced, still carry meaning. In telling it, communities reaffirm a commitment to protect, to listen, and to act before it is too late. As years passed, the case remained a defining moment for Oregon City, shaping how residents understood safety and responsibility. Conversations that once felt uncomfortable became necessary, especially those involving who children interacted with and how concerns were reported. Parents reflected on how easily familiarity can lower defenses, allowing harmful behavior to go unnoticed. Community leaders emphasized that vigilance does not mean suspicion of everyone, but awareness of patterns and behaviors that raise concern. Workshops, school assemblies, and parent meetings increasingly referenced the lessons learned from Ashley and Miranda's disappearances. Their case quietly reshaped everyday decisions, from how children walked home to how neighbors communicated concerns. While these changes could never undo the past, they reflected a collective commitment to do better. The memory of two girls lost too soon continued to guide those efforts, serving as a constant reminder that prevention begins long before a crime is discovered. For the families, life after the trial was marked by a new reality defined by absence. Holidays, birthdays, and milestones became moments of quiet remembrance rather than celebration. Ashley Pond's and Miranda Gaddis's mothers spoke at events dedicated to missing and exploited children, using their voices to advocate for stronger protections. Their courage transformed personal grief into public purpose. Though speaking about the case was painful, they believed silence would allow others to forget. By sharing their stories, they kept their daughters' names alive and humanized the statistics often associated with missing children. These efforts resonated with families across the country, many of whom saw their own fears reflected in the story. Through advocacy, Ashley and Miranda's families found a way to honor their daughters not only in memory, but through action. The case also prompted discussion within law enforcement circles about interagency communication and early intervention. Experts analyzed how initial assumptions can delay progress when investigators underestimate the seriousness of early evidence. Training programs increasingly stress the importance of connecting similar cases quickly, even when definitive proof is lacking. The disappearances of Ashley and Miranda demonstrated how time can be the most critical factor in missing child investigations. These lessons influenced procedural changes, encouraging faster collaboration and deeper analysis of local suspects. While no system is perfect, the goal became clear: reduce the chance that warning signs would be overlooked. In this way, the tragedy contributed to meaningful improvements, ensuring that the loss endured by one community might help protect others. Public memory of the case has been preserved through documentaries, articles, and community discussions that continue to revisit what happened. Each retelling carries a responsibility to approach the subject with respect, focusing not on sensationalism, but on understanding. The story is difficult to hear, yet it remains necessary. By examining how the crimes unfolded, audiences are reminded that awareness is a collective duty. The case challenges viewers to ask difficult questions about trust, accountability, and action. In revisiting the details, the focus remains on the victims, their personalities, their dreams, and the impact of their loss. This careful remembrance ensures that Ashley and Miranda are remembered as individuals, not just as names associated with a crime. Over time, the apartment complex where the girls lived changed, residents moved on, and new families arrived. Yet the ground itself holds memory. Longtime residents still recall the fear that settled over the neighborhood in 2002, the helicopters overhead, and the unanswered questions that lingered for months. Even those who did not know Ashley or Miranda personally felt the weight of the tragedy. It reshaped how neighbors interacted and how trust was defined. Though the physical environment evolved, the emotional imprint remained. The case became part of local history, passed down through conversations and community awareness efforts. It stands as a reminder that places carry stories, and some stories permanently shape how those places are experienced. Ashley Pond and Miranda Gaddis were children navigating the ordinary challenges of adolescence: friendships, school, and dreams for the future. Remembering them means acknowledging those unfinished stories. Ashley's confidence and energy, Miranda's creativity and quiet strength, were qualities loved by those who knew them best. These details matter because they restore humanity to a narrative often dominated by crime details. In honoring who they were, the community refuses to let their identities be defined solely by violence. Their lives, though brief, left an imprint that continues to influence conversations about protection, empathy, and responsibility. This focus on life rather than loss is what allows remembrance to become meaningful rather than purely painful. The case also illustrates how communities respond to trauma over time. Initial shock gives way to grief, which eventually transforms into reflection and resolve. Oregon City's journey followed this path, shaped by shared loss and collective determination. Community members learned to support one another through counseling, dialogue, and advocacy. These responses did not erase fear, but they fostered resilience. By confronting the reality of what happened, rather than turning away from it, the community found strength. This process highlighted the importance of open communication and shared responsibility in healing. Through remembrance and action, Oregon City demonstrated that even in the aftermath of tragedy, growth and understanding are possible. Nationally, the story of Ashley Pond and Miranda Gaddis resonates because it challenges assumptions about where danger exists. It reminds viewers that safety cannot be measured solely by appearance or familiarity. Predators often rely on trust and routine to conceal their actions. Recognizing this truth is uncomfortable, but necessary. The case urges families and communities to remain attentive without becoming fearful, to trust instincts, and to speak up when something feels wrong. These lessons extend beyond any single location, offering guidance applicable everywhere. By sharing this story, audiences are invited to reflect on their own environments and consider how awareness and communication can make a difference. As time moves forward, new generations learn about the case not as current news, but as history. How it is remembered matters. When told responsibly, the story serves as education rather than exploitation. It emphasizes compassion for victims, accountability for perpetrators, and the importance of proactive prevention. Each retelling reinforces the idea that vigilance saves lives. Ashley and Miranda's story continues to be used in training, advocacy, and awareness campaigns, ensuring their legacy remains active rather than static. In this way, remembrance becomes a form of protection, extending the impact of their lives beyond their years. The shocking case of Ashley Pond and Miranda Gaddis is ultimately a story of innocence lost, trust betrayed, and lessons learned at an unbearable cost. It stands as a warning about the dangers that can exist within familiar spaces and a call to action for communities everywhere. Though justice was achieved through the courts, the deeper responsibility lies in remembrance and change. Ashley and Miranda are remembered not as victims alone, but as young girls whose lives mattered deeply and continue to matter through the impact of their story. By telling it, we honor them and reaffirm a commitment to vigilance, empathy, and protection for those who are most vulnerable.